To the HIH Podcast with Hiko and Garytt on this hot, sweltering July day in Los Angeles.
Hello.
In our studio with us today is director Ringo Lee, filmmaker, producer, actor, writer, everything. He currently has Big Gay Love screening at Outfest this weekend here in Los Angeles. Hello, Ringo.
Hello, everybody in hot and Hollywood land.
I actually want to start off, I know we were originally going to talk about some other things, but I want to start off talking about Ringo's film, because I watched the trailer yesterday.
Okay.
And I was really intrigued by it. And I wanted to get to know you a little bit and wonder, like, who were, as a young filmmaker, who are your inspirations in terms of filmmakers that you look up to? Because watching the trailer, I could see, to me, it seemed very Woody Allen-esque. It was almost like if Woody Allen had decided to jump right into the gay single world, and that's how I felt. I felt very Woody Allen-esque. I was wondering who your inspirations were as a filmmaker.
Oh, thanks so much, Garytt. I think, my inspiration for Big Gay Love came about because, I've been going to all these gay film festivals for over a long time, and I just thought that someone like Bob Bartholomew, the lead in Big Gay Love, had not been presented before. And I love Woody Allen. I love Midnight in Paris. I love Annie Hall. I love Crimes and Misdemeanors, all of those films. And so I do love that. But then there's this other silly side of me that also loves like Airplane, and then those 90s movies that Hiko and I have this love for, like, What was that one movie? All of the John Candy movies in the 1990s, like, they're like slapstick, but then at the same time, there's a lot of heart to them.
Right.
But the genesis for Big Gay Love, I think, came about, not to name drop, but actually, I'd been wanting to write it for a long time because I had just gone through the CBS directing program in 2008. I was like one of 3 minorities, how they drop the colored people in to sprinkle them into the fold. But then I fell on my ass, so I wrote the script, and I had written 6-7 drafts, and then I went to the premiere of this film called Bridesmaids, who one of my best friends...
Small little film. Yeah. Bridesmaids.
So I went to this premiere called Bridesmaids, not knowing anything about it, because my friend Matt Lucas was in it. He played Kristen Wiig's roommate in the film, and I don't know, it just something triggered in me. I was like, this character Annie in Bridesmaids is very different, the opposite of everything that you see in women's cinema. With these pretty little girls that are mean and vicious, and the queen bee in their high schools. She's like the loser in Wisconsin, and her cupcake store fell over, and she's alone, and she's the only single one. So I thought, paralleling that to the gay universe, I thought that it's very hard to be gay, to be out, to be successful, and to try to have a career for yourself, and be yourself and be loved at the same time. Because I think the hyper visual image of queer culture has been created in the last 30 years after Stonewall, to the point where we can't just be ourselves anymore. It's there's all these types. There's either you're a Castro clone, or you're a bear, or you're a twink, or you're a rice queen, or you're a potato queen. All of these labels, and I'm like, okay, let's throw these labels into a blender and let's deconstruct it.
Quick question, as a straight guy, I know these labels well.
Potato queen, that's new.
I've never heard that.
Yeah.
What is a potato queen?
Potato queen is someone that only
Irish
likes Anglo-Saxons.
Or gingers, maybe.
Oh man, so I always wonder when these labels are flying around, is labels like twink, labels like bear. Am I allowed to use these words when describing certain people? Like, not so much like, it's not like I'd run up to somebody and be like, oh, you bear. I wouldn't do that. But if someone's like, but if somebody...
If you have a gay friend, maybe if they're single and you're trying to set them up, you're going to set them up with someone, maybe on a blind date, and your gay friend is asking you, well, what does he look like? You can use those terms.
Right. It's weird, the straight culture. I use a word like twink around people, and people look at me like, what word did you just use? And I'm like, am I the only one who knows these words? No? Okay. All right.
Well,
maybe it's living in West Hollywood.
We'll send you a glossary maybe so you can study it for future reference.
Oh man, I have so many glossaries.
So in Big Gay Love, Ringo, it stars Jonathan Lysecki as Bob, the unlucky in love party planner, and for attention Buffyverse fans, Nicholas Brendan as the hunky chef that he falls for. So Nicholas Brendan, how did he become attached to this project? How did he come about?
Nicholas Brendan, actually, my casting director had put out a notice, and then we had searched for a lot of people, and then we were searching for a lot of people for Bob too, and who Jonathan Lysecki plays, and we were looking all over the place, and I had met Jonathan actually at Outfest this exact same time last year, and then I had just saw this film called Gaby that's #1 on iTunes. I'm sure Jonathan would love that.
Yeah.
It's #1 on iTunes, like next to Spring Breakers and like Identity Thief. It's amazing that an indie film can go head to head in a democratic universe such as the internet and be #1 with, those big Hollywood studio films. But we found Nicholas because he just loved the script and he came in for a read, and then I was like, okay, Jonathan, you have to come from New York, because he's originally from Brooklyn, to LA and just read with Nicholas. And then when they came in, it was magic. And afterwards, the casting director, David Zimmerman and Stanzi Stokes, and I just looked at each other and we were like, we found our Bob and Andy. And I was so relieved because we searched for like 4 months and they were so tired. And every time we go into a casting room, they're like, okay, I hope you pick your Bob already because we're really tired.
Well, since we're going to be talking about the recent Entertainment Weekly issue that's coming out, or that already came out, the 100 all-time greatest, what would you say are some of the great gay-themed films that have come out that maybe have inspired you as a filmmaker or have really made a mark on culture in general?
The gay films that I love, I think, I worked at a different light in college when I was at San Francisco State in the 90s, and I used to sneak into the Castro Theater and see a lot of films that are so outside of this place called Hollywood. So I would say Happy Together by Wong Kar-wai is probably my #1 favorite gay-themed film. And then, of course, anything Pedro Almodovar I love. Stuff from the 90s, even tangentially gay stuff, like Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown, or to more gay stuff like what was that? Bad Education, I really loved. And then also films like, people from across the other side of the world, like Apichatpong, where Sarah Skulls, Tropical Malady, I really loved. It's just a very different sensibility, and you can create this sensibility and this universe and not compromise your vision because, there's a bottom line or there's people in the top tiers telling you what to do, and it's so individualistic and it's so independent and it's such a singular vision that I love it.
When did you realize you wanted to be a filmmaker?
I think I've always wanted to be a filmmaker, but since 13 years old.
Was there a movie that made you say, I have to do this for the rest of my life?
I have to tell a story on the big screen.
Right.
I think if there was one movie that influenced me in America, I would have to say Thelma and Louise.
Oh, wow.
Because when I was 13, I went to see that in the theaters, and it was at this cheap, double billed movie theater that you can, pay $1 to see 2 or 3 films. And I saw Thelma and Louise, and I just saw the juxtaposition of women's issues in the world, and not knowing about my issues yet, many to come later. I just thought, wow, how can a film be so powerful, saying so much about the place, the predicament of women in modern day society. And I just thought, wow, that's when I wanted to be a filmmaker.
Cool. I don't think Thelma and Louise made it to the Entertainment Weekly's all-time greatest list, but
Not even in the top 100?
I don't think so. But were you able to look through some of the lists in this issue?
I did, yes.
I think we were going to go over some of the top 10 in all the mediums.
I want to talk about the top 10 films that they have in there.
Yeah.
A lot of them, there's no point in talking about one through 3. When you talk about the greatest films of all time, 1 through 3 are always going to be, in really any particular order, Citizen Kane, The Godfather, and Casablanca.
Okay.
No real argument.
And
Is there an argument, Hiko?
No, there isn't. I mean, I've seen those movies once because I've seen them as I grew up, or I saw Citizen Kane in a media lit class when I was in high school, and I'm afraid that was the only time I had seen it. Godfather. What about you?
I think The Godfather. I'm one of the few people that thinks The Godfather is better than Part 2. But The Godfather's just it's a beautiful story about America.
Yeah.
It's not about the mob, people. Look deeper. Look deeper. And Casablanca. I recently watched Casablanca again on Blu-ray on an anniversary edition. It was newly remastered. It's just a beautiful, beautiful film. And Bogart is just fantastic in it.
It's interesting that Psycho came in at number 5.
And I'm glad. I'm glad.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was heralded. Well, not heralded. In retrospect, people are calling it like the original slasher movie. And it's interesting because back in 1960 when it came out, it didn't get that much critical praise because it was considered exploitative. Like the shock was considered
people still
kind of gimmicky.
See it.
But it was revolutionary because the leading lady gets killed halfway through the film.
Spoiler alert.
If you haven't seen Psycho by now. If you haven't seen Psycho by now, you shouldn't be listening to this podcast. But yeah, Psycho was very interesting.
I rewatched Psycho 2 weeks ago. And I said, I need to kill some time. I'm going to turn on Psycho. I'll watch maybe, 10, 15 minutes. I ended up sitting through the entire thing. And that movie is just a masterpiece, shot by shot. And my favorite Hitchcock movie's always been Rear Window. But after watching Psycho again, it's hard not to just fall in love with that movie from beginning to end.
And Hitchcock has, I think, maybe one or two others in the top 100. North by Northwest with Cary Grant. Such an iconic scene with him running through the fields, being chased by a crop duster. Bonnie and Clyde was also in the top 10.
That's number 4.
I have not seen that movie.
You haven't seen Bonnie and Clyde?
No.
The Ringo. Ringo's got his mouth to the floor. This is an audio podcast. He's shocked.
Are there any of the top 10 movies you haven't seen, Ringo?
Okay, let's go through the top 10.
Yeah.
Number 10, Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
Has everybody seen Gone with the Wind?
I've seen it.
Of course. Nashville, number 9.
I have not seen it.
Gold Rush, number 8.
No.
Yes.
Have you seen any Chaplin?
No.
Shit.
Oh, jeez.
7, Mean Streets. 6, It's a Wonderful Life.
Wonderful Life, yes.
5, Psycho, Bonnie and Clyde, Casablanca, Godfather.
I've seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the top 10.
Then you were the one who wanted to talk about this.
Well, yeah.
And you come in here.
I was
just
I was going to talk about the lists in general. My overall critique.
I don't like talking in general.
I find it interesting. No, I find it interesting what this Entertainment Weekly issue, what it reveals about pop culture. Because I counted 76% of the 100 greatest films of all time were all released before 1980.
Yeah.
So, what do you think that says about the future of film or film,
it doesn't
cinema
say
today?
Anything.
Well, do you think
listen, a film's been around for over 100 years now.
Yeah.
And, over 100 years. What it says is that the pioneers, you're always going to appreciate and regard the pioneers.
Okay.
Even though the great comedians that we see nowadays can be inspired by Charlie Chaplin, the fact is Charlie Chaplin did it first, and he did it in the most brilliant way, so Gold Rush deserves to be number 8.
Yeah. It's the originators, the ones,
right.
Like you said, the pioneers. Do you think...
And plus, film critics are nostalgic people... like by nature.
True.
So for them to put something that came out in 2010 on the 100 best list, which can't imagine anything.
Well, there was a 2009 entry.
Plus,
Hurt Locker.
Hurt Locker?
Yeah.
I don't think that deserves to be in the hundreds of greatest films of all time. And listen, Hurt Locker's a fine film, but I think what happens is that you need to find out what movies stand the test of time.
Oh, yeah.
And I think when you look back at the past 5-6 years of the Academy Awards, in 10 years, like the Best Picture winners of the past 5 years, I still can't believe The Artist won Best Picture. Because now it's like streaming on Netflix and no one gives a shit.
And people forget what won Best Picture the year before or 2 years before. But I'm just wondering, I'm wondering if that percentage will change 50 years from now, if it'll even out, that there'll be some more films represented from, the beginning of the 21st century.
No way. I don't believe so.
Okay.
Because I think even in 2050, when you're going to film school, you're going to go back to it's the same reason. If you're an English lit major, you're gonna study Shakespeare. You're not gonna films are our literature. Yeah, it's how I don't have.
But then it's interesting. It's interesting to see the medium of television though on the 100 greatest list. Like 61% of the TV shows listed premiered after 1990. So it's like it's flipped for TV.
I don't know why you're surprised by this.
No, it's interesting. It's something to point out to show like where TV is now as opposed to where film is. Well,
first off, I do want to address the fact that Mean Streets is in the top 10 because I wouldn't even put. If I were to pick a Scorsese movie to be in the top 10, it would be Raging Bull.
Me too, definitely.
Or Taxi Driver. Maybe, Mean Streets again. Like, do you look to the filmmakers first? Do you first film that really made it big? Maybe that's why it's in there. Mean Streets is a spectacular film. But Raging Bull, there's a reason why when AFI did their top 100 list, they did it again 10 years later. Mm-hmm. And Raging Bull went from like number 30 to number 3. Or number 4, because again, Citizen Kane, Godfather, Casablanca, always top 3. Yeah. Raging Bull is regarded as the number 4 film of all time by AFI. It is. I saw it a couple months ago at the Cinerama Dome. Seeing that film on a big screen, it's unlike any other experience I've ever had.
It's a religious experience.
It's so in your face. It's so unapologetically violent. I brought my girlfriend. She'd never seen it. And she was so disturbed by it. And it's great seeing people have these reactions to these old films. It's like, I went and saw Some Like It Hot a couple of years ago at the Turner Classic Movies Film Festival. And seeing a movie like that with an audience, it's an experience that you don't get to have very often.
Because movies now are made for certain niches, I feel like, or for certain demographics. Movies, they started out as a communal experience for a group, for a mass audience to experience. But in some ways, they still do that with all the crappy blockbusters that come out summer after summer.
Well, let's talk about crappy blockbusters.
Yeah. Lone Ranger.
Yeah. Did we talk about The Lone Ranger in the last podcast?
We did not, because it came out 4th of July weekend.
Right. I haven't seen it, and
I have not seen it. Yeah.
And I've been very vocal about why I will not see The Lone Ranger.
Okay.
If Gore Verbinski made The Lone Ranger 100 minutes, I might go pay $7 to see it. I might. But I might. 2 hours and 20 minutes of Johnny Depp in face makeup. I can't do it. I'm
exactly.
Sorry. I can't do it.
The only people I know who have seen it were my parents, and my mom's review was, it was silly. They should have called it Tonto.
Ooh.
So there you go. It was the Johnny Depp show all over again.
Reviews, my parents saw The Heat.
Okay.
With Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy, and they loved it.
I saw it.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. It was
I heard it was one of those movies that everybody loved to hate before it came out.
Of course.
Everybody's like, look at this awful movie with Melissa McCarthy and Sandra Bullock. Then it comes out and everybody's like, no, it was actually pretty good.
It was pretty good.
But let's talk about the TV side.
Yes. Entertainment Weekly's 100 greatest TV shows now.
And I have the list right in front of me.
Yes.
And I want to know how many of these you've seen.
Okay.
So we've got number 10, Your Show of Shows.
No, I have not.
Okay, I haven't seen that either.
Yeah.
And I took like a golden age of... I've taken several like 1950s television courses. I've never seen that.
As did I.
It's on YouTube. You can watch it.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah. Mad Men.
Yes.
First off, I don't think it should be in the top 10. I'll tell you why.
After we go through the top 10.
No, I'm going to tell you
Okay,
right now.
tell us now.
I don't think any show should be eligible for a top 10 anything until the series is final. Until you've written the series finale, it's aired. So it is one. It's like reading through a book 3/4 of the way through and saying, you know what, this is the best of all time. Yeah. That last 20 pages could ruin everything.
Yeah.
So I mean, listen, Mad Men is fantastic. This past season, I was a little underwhelmed. But still, I don't think it should even be eligible for top 10.
Wait, I have a question about this season's Mad Men. How did Betty get skinny again? I didn't get that. Did I miss something?
I haven't watched this season.
I think that was just in between seasons. I mean, you mean how did Betty get?
Betty's character, not January Jones.
Huh. That's a good question.
Because she was like fat for like 4 episodes, and all of a sudden she's skinny again.
Well, no, I think she was skinny all of this season.
Yeah.
All of this season. The last season, Hiko's got his hands up. You don't even watch that.
No, I know, but it's funny how that's the one issue that pops up into your brain.
Oh, there are a lot of issues with me this season. I was watching it, like asking myself sometimes, I'm like, what are we doing here?
with Mad Men? I love this season.
I loved last season. This season, and part of it too is on Sunday nights when you're juxtaposing Game of Thrones and Mad Men, and I'm yelling at the TV. You know what, Don? No one cares about your inner issues. There are people dying. Winter is coming. I don't care about it. So I mean that could be part of it.
All right. So ask me about number 8 on the
number 8,
TV
your
list.
favorite Buffy.
Yeah, I think I've seen that show.
You think you've seen it multiple times?
Have you seen? That's the question.
I've seen episodes. I have not watched it as a series, and I know it's one of those series that I should watch. It's not really in my world of interest, but I'll check it out.
Is there a specific interest for people that like Buffy? I mean,
well, Buffy for me,
bending.
it started.
I mean, genre bending, gender bending.
It is. Well, it's a little gender bending. It came out when I was in high school, and I loved. I was a big horror novel aficionado, and so I would read all the R.L. Stine, cheap paperback novels. And so this show, Fear Street, a couple of Goosebumps, even though I was getting a little old for that. But Buffy the Vampire Slayer, when it came out in the WB in March of 1997, I saw it as like the TV series version of all those crappy, cheap horror paperbacks that I read for teens. But then I watched it and I saw that the writing was really good. And then I would say the first season, it was a mid-season show, so the first season was kind of short, but it grabbed my interest. The second season, they really got into character development. By the third season, I was just blown away. And then it continued with the fourth season.
And then the fifth.
And then the fifth. And how
TV
Joss
shows usually
Whedon,
go in order.
Well, it's funny. It's how Joss Whedon planned it as a 5-season show. And he had this arc that would carry to the 5th season finale. And spoiler alert, if you haven't watched it.
I haven't watched it. Don't spoil it.
Well, something very climactic happens at the end of the 5th season, and it could have been the series finale because the WB was folding at the time, some shows were moving to UPN. So Buffy did get picked up by UPN, so they did a 6th and 7th season, but he managed to just effortlessly transition the storyline into a new chapter for the show. And the 6th season was known as their dark season because a lot of heavy crap goes down. And then
they had that musical episode, didn't they?
Which was kind of groundbreaking because no other dramas had done that. Grey's Anatomy.
There's a reason.
Well, no, but the way. But in a fantasy thriller show like this allows for a musical to happen. It turned out to be a curse. A curse was put in the town, making everyone break out in song by this Broadway-loving demon.
All right.
So, but the show was all about the metaphors of growing up. It was like the ultimate coming-of-age story with these crazy demonic metaphors. But it matured so nicely, and it brought out all these other allegories that was never really seen on television. And then the series finale, it wrapped it up perfectly while still leaving it kind of open-ended. It closed the chapter on the show, and I cry every time I watch it. So there you go. Oh, Garytt, get on it.
All right. Well, number 7's Andy Griffith. Have you ever seen any Andy Griffith episodes?
In reruns when I was little.
Of course. Yeah. Of course. You've seen them. If you've seen one, you see them all.
Yeah.
Let's be honest here. Yeah. And it is one of those things where old TV, it's versus older movies. Just it's also because you can do more You can do more things on television nowadays. Plus, the competition is much steeper.
Thanks to cable.
Yeah, I mean, well, the competition, like, you've got broadcast networks fighting networks like FX for viewers.
Mm-hmm.
All in the Family. Have you ever watched?
Oh yes, I watched as a little kid in reruns. Maybe not realizing the topics that were addressed in the show. I think as a little kid, I just saw it as, a comedy about a grumpy old guy sitting in his chair.
Is just awesome. It's just an incredible show.
Groundbreaking and addressing all these taboo topics.
And the characters and the way they're played and the way it's written, it's just a brilliant comedy.
It's Norman Lear for you.
Yeah. Number 5, The Sopranos.
I think we talked about this in our last podcast. I've seen a few episodes.
Have you, Ringo? Have you watched this?
I've seen a few. Yeah.
See, this is a problem.
And Garrett's now watching it again in honor of James Gandolfini's passing.
I'm rewatching it, and the thing about The Sopranos, and I said this last time, is it's like opening Hamlet and reading a page, closing it, and saying like, "Oh, I've seen it. I've read Hamlet." It's like, "Oh, no, you haven't." So both of you get on it.
Okay, will do.
Mary Tyler Moore, number 4.
I maybe just one episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom was a big fan of it during her single 20-something years, and it was groundbreaking because it was a career woman, the center of attention on a show, and it came, right during the women's lib movement. So I can see that and appreciate what it did for TV.
Number 3, Seinfeld.
Oh yes, I know.
Whoa,
yeah, Calm down. Seinfeld. It came out when I was 9. I was a little too young when it came out, and then I just never got into it. And then I had this freaky roommate in college. Oh shit, I shouldn't have said that. Who was obsessed with this show and would just recite lines and always say "giddy up," and just it was just.
Joe's laughing right now.
I have
giddy up.
I just have these weird associations with it, and I just never got into it. And there are, I think, more people coming out of the closet now to say that they never watched Seinfeld. They never got it because, at the core of it. Yes, it was funny. It was a show about nothing, whatever. It was different from what was out there on TV at the time. They were not likable people for me.
Okay, first off.
And sometimes people will respond to that, and there's a lot of great humor. But
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
funny is funny.
Okay.
Funny is funny. And the thing about comedy, and a lot of these comedies that come out nowadays, and you talk about being unlikable.
Yeah.
You don't need in comedy to have likable characters. You just want to have characters you want to be around. That you find interesting enough that you're like, I want to hang around here. And Jerry's apartment was that place.
Okay.
I wanted to know what George was up to, what Elaine was up to, the crazy stuff Kramer was up to. And, Jerry was the most unlikable character on the show. And, he's the most forgettable character on the show. But I mean, it's him and Jerry and Larry David, whose mind brought the brilliance to the screen. I mean, Ringo,
I love Seinfeld. I love it because it's about nothing, and it's no message. It's just about the silliness of that time period.
And it gives you so much to work with when it's about nothing.
Yeah.
It's storylines. Who cares about storylines? Just each episode make it as zany and laugh out loud as possible.
But from the episodes that I've seen and the commentaries and essays I've read about it, on TV in general, they said some of the greatest episodes were, those nothing plot lines would kind of tie together and come together at the end of an episode, which kind of made it brilliant. That's where people found the brilliance in Seinfeld. I mean, again, I can appreciate it. It just wasn't my thing at the time. So.
Wow.
But the writing is spectacular. Master of My Domain. I still remember that.
It's the greatest episode, my favorite episode. I mean, do you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm?
I've seen a few episodes, yeah.
What do you think about that?
I've found it funny.
Again, this is an audio medium.
It's a kind of humor that people will either get or just not be on board with. It's that uncomfortable humor or awkward humor or just,
Wow.
I don't know the exact name for this humor, but yeah, I just never responded to it.
I think you need to go to a shrink or something.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I think Curb Your...
If you front the bill, I'll go see a therapist.
All right, well, let's...
Number 2, The Simpsons, which is still on the air. So what do you think, Garrett, with your theory that a show should just shut down and to be included in a list?
The Simpsons is...
It's been over for you, huh?
No. The Simpsons is... I can't even think of the word. It's almost like it's got tenure on television. It's
I think Matt Groening, is that how you pronounce his last name?
Groening?
Matt Groening. Joe, what do you think?
That sounds about right.
I think it's Groening.
Matt Groening. I'm going to say Groening. He probably comes into a meeting for 5 minutes, gives his approval, and walks out the door.
Good for him.
Like, yeah. I mean, the show's been on for over 20 years.
And that's why it deserves to be number 2. And The Simpsons in its heyday in the 90s, those episodes were just incredible.
Yeah.
And, it's still... I think the problem with The Simpsons now and versus when it was on during the 90s and really flourishing is that they focus too much on celebrity. They have the guest star come in as themselves. And it's never timely. Because it takes, 8 months from conception to air for The Simpsons to basically animate. So when they're doing, jokes about, the new iPad, it's sort of like, well, this sort of happened last year.
I'm sure I'm sure they've sped up the process with how long an episode. Is it still 8 months?
It's still 8 months.
Oh, well.
The animation on the show is second to none.
Well, therein lies the challenge for the writers to come up with something that's a little more timeless.
But that's the thing, is that The Simpsons was never like a pop culture show, like Family Guy.
Yeah.
It was its own universe.
Yeah.
And in that respect, a show that I turned Joe on to last weekend that reminds me of The Simpsons during the 90s is Bob's Burgers.
Oh, yeah.
It is just utterly hilarious. Okay. It's in its own world. It's contained, and The Simpsons just got way too big. Where they're like, oh, we're gonna have Kiefer Sutherland on. We're gonna have the Rolling Stones on. Britney Spears is gonna have.
Shows do that. Case in point, Will and Grace. They, I think I started rewatching that on my DVDs. Starting with the 4th season, they had a slew of guest stars. Matt Damon,
became a show about guest
Michael
stars.
Douglas,
Right.
Glenn Close. Yeah, they started getting criticized for just having it be Will and Grace in the celebrity show. Yeah. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. They had Madonna, they had Jennifer Lopez, Janet Jackson, you name it. That was interesting. So that's kind of suffered from that celebrity-itis.
And the number 1 show of all
Drum roll, please.
The Wire.
Yes.
And Ringo agrees. Agrees.
I have not seen it.
I know.
Yeah.
And again.
So moving on.
Why are we talking about television? You haven't seen how many? You don't like Seinfeld. You haven't seen The Sopranos. You're not caught up on Mad Men.
At least there's one show on there that I'm passionate about.
What makes you a pop culture expert?
No, doesn't mean I have to love everything as long as I have knowledge of everything.
But you don't.
I do.
You haven't seen The Sopranos. You haven't seen The Wire.
I have seen The Sopranos.
No, you haven't.
I haven't seen full seasons. Fine, go ahead. Are there any omissions? Let's look at the rest of this list. Are there any omissions? Are you pissed that Murder, She Wrote didn't make it to the list, Garrett? Huh?
No. I've seen Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah.
The sound of pages turning must be... Again, Breaking Bad's 18, fine. Honestly, I think The Twilight Zone should have made it into the top 10. I think The Twilight Zone is just an incredible show. The Office UK, number 14, Saturday Night Live, 12. Yeah, I mean, nothing... But you're talking about the top 10. The fact that you haven't seen The Wire or The Sopranos is just astounding to me.
Okay.
Because at this point, especially living in Los Angeles, working in the industry...
I'm being shamed, Ringo. Help me.
The Wire, I mean...
The Wire is very hard to watch, though.
It is.
The first
season. The first season is
so gritty.
very slow.
Okay.
But it's one of those things where that show, by the time it's ended, your life has changed. The 4th season of that show is the best writing I think has ever graced television. When they show the correlation between the worlds of the streets and drug dealing and the world of public schools, and how a government works the same way as the streets, your mind's blown. It's incredible.
There you
and
go.
You haven't seen it.
And I haven't seen it. Yeah, shoot me.
Well, speaking of new TV, have you watched Ray Donovan on Showtime?
I did. I caught the pilot.
Yeah. What about you, Ringo? Have you checked it out?
No, what's Ray Donovan?
With Liev Schreiber.
It's Liev.
Okay.
Liev, I'm sorry.
Liev Schreiber.
Liev Schreiber and who plays his dad?
Voight.
John Voight.
What did you think of the pilot?
I thought it was all right. I know what you thought of the Boston accents portrayed in this show.
Oh my God, John Voight. You know what John Voight sort of reminds me of in Ray Donovan? He reminds me of Jessica Lange in American Horror Story. Like I'm just chewing up scenery, and I'm just gonna like play this as over the top. I mean, it's only 2 episodes in.
Yeah, I've only seen the first episode. I'm interested to see where the show's gonna go and how where it's leading to, because right now Ray Donovan, he's a fixer in Hollywood. He cleans up messes and prevents scandals. We already have a show kind of like that on ABC.
This is different.
Yeah, this is different. We know more about his family life, and everything is entangled together. I might have to give it a few more episodes.
For me, the pilot, basically like a big Hollywood movie star, big action movie coming up, gets caught with a transsexual, and like I'm watching it, I'm like, we've seen this before.
Yeah.
And like Ray Donovan comes in to like fix it. And it's all about his past.
So it's like a male scandal, right?
Well, that's what I was saying, but there's a little more to it. He has a family.
There's more. I think what
he has a past.
I think if the past is more prominent than what he's doing, it'll be a much more interesting show. But like even some of the characters, like his wife. His wife is just awful. I'm sorry. That Boston accent. Why does everybody who decides to get, and I'm from Boston, so this is why I'm angry. Not everybody who lives in Boston, Massachusetts came over from Ireland on a boat. There's 2 Boston accents that actors like to portray. It's either I'm going to sound like John F. Kennedy,
or I'm from Southie.
I'm talking to you, Mr. Tom Hanks, and Catch Me If You Can. I love you, Tom. And there's that Ireland, like I'm gonna mix with a little Boston accent type thing.
Well, no, it's
where John Voight's like telling his son, he's like, have you ever he's like, what's he say? He says, oh God, when he says the word blowjob, I'm just like, I
didn't pick that up. To me, it's that stereotypical Southie accent from the ghettos of Boston.
Well, that's not stereotypical.
I mean, but that's the other accent that people try to do whenever they're portraying Boston accents.
Well, yeah, and that's the
And then yeah. Well, what are you gonna do?
I don't know. I'll stick with Ray Donovan for now.
Until Breaking Bad comes back on August 11th for the final episodes.
Right.
Which is, did you see they're going to run the series finale at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery here in LA?
Shut up.
On the big screen. That's going to be a gathering for the books.
Wait.
Have you not? How come you haven't heard about this?
Are there tickets?
I'm sure there are tickets.
When?
The final episode is probably in September.
No, I mean, like, do I buy tickets?
Go to Cinespia.com.
Is it a Cinespia event?
I'm guessing it's a Cinespia event because it's at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery.
That is going to be
Shall we make it a day?
Pandemonium. Wow.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if
that's like the major...
Can you imagine if like the Sopranos, you know how the Sopranos ends, but if the Sopranos finale had played in like if they played it at like a
something
big
wrong
venue,
with the projector
and everybody just goes and like just pandemonium breaks loose.
Is it a date? Are we gonna go?
I'm going.
All right.
I'm going.
Sure. I'll pack the picnic basket.
Exciting.
Another big show coming back this week is Here Comes Honey Boo Boo.
Oh.
Look at Ringo's face.
Have
you seen that show?
I have.
What, is it the third season now?
Unfortunately.
Third season. I've always been a defender of this show because
you see the good in it.
I do see the good in it. And you look at the story of each person in this show. First, you got the father, who is really only the father to one of the kids.
Yeah.
But his name is Sugar Bear. So Sugar Bear decides to...
And that's not a gay term, by the way.
Right. I mean, well, no, there are a lot of great things about it. You've got... Sure, they're hillbillies from the South. They're being exploited to some extent. But there are certain things that you need to like peel back the line and be like, you know what? They're better people than I am. Certain things like, in Georgia, in like the boonies in Georgia, it can't be easy being gay. I can't imagine it's easy being gay. That family completely accepts their uncle, who's a gay uncle. They call him Uncle Poodle. That's what they call him. But they love him. They love him, accepting. daughter gets pregnant, has a kid.
Well,
like, how many girls are thrown out when they get pregnant? This family, it's like, we're gonna work through this together. Like, there's a lot of lessons to be learned.
Well, my first reaction to that show is when I'm watching the show and I'm introduced to Mama, who's my age and already is a grandparent.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, holy fuck. What? We can say that. You can curse, Ringo. It's okay. Yeah. It's okay. Get it out.
Get it out of your system. But yeah, I listen. It's funny. I actually watched an episode because there's like a whole marathon going on before I came over here.
Of course.
And of course, it's silly, but it's not. People who haven't seen it who say like, oh, it's just garbage. They're exploiting. They're awful people. It's like, you know what? I guarantee they are better people than you.
And there are people who are saying now that Mama is probably smarter than she looks, and she's just raking in all this cash.
And you know what? She's not spending a dime with it. She's putting in trusts for her kids. They're still living in the same house. They're still living in the same town.
Maybe they got a nice new pickup truck, but still.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, you know what? Maybe they're smarter than all of us. So I don't know how you want to wrap this up. Let's talk a little bit about Ringo's film. When's it
Big Gay Love. It's playing at Outfest actually tomorrow,
which is Sunday
at 4:30 p.m. and we have a red carpet at 3:30 actually, and
at the DGA.
Whole entire cast, including Jonathan Lasecki, Nicholas Brendan, and yada yada yada. It's a quote Seinfeld.
at the DGA.
It's
going
to be there.
Yeah. Sunset Boulevard. And do you have any plans, or do you know when it might be released theatrically?
Theatrically, no.
That's what the festival's for, folks.
Still looking for a distributor?
Yeah, we're shopping it around. There's a lot of people looking at it. But yeah, come out and have a good time. There's a free cocktail reception afterwards at 6:30.
And who doesn't love a free cocktail?
Yeah, in the DGA atrium, and talk with the cast and crew, and there's going to be a bunch of Hollywood people there. So
cool,
awesome.
Well, thank you, Ringo, for joining. Oh yes, go ahead.
I just want to say for our listeners, movie came out on Blu-ray this week that you should see. My opinion, best movie of the year thus far, most thought-provoking, most visually stunning, Spring Breakers.
Oh.
And you're laughing. You know why? Because you haven't seen it.
Yeah. No, I read your review of it before.
Yeah. That movie says more about America, its youth, sexualization of women, and young women than any other movie I've ever seen, and it is utterly brilliant and the best use of a Britney Spears song ever.
Wow, there you go, folks.
Well, Hiko, let's make that a date.
Right, you guys really should watch it. It is.
Did you get the Blu-ray?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
We'll borrow it from Garrett.
Yeah, I'll buy it and I'll pass it around.
Yeah.
But next week we'll be broadcasting.
That's right.
From Comic-Con.
Comic-Con 2013. Live from San Diego. We're mentally and physically preparing for
Joe, are you ready?
Yeah.
We're gonna be.
Joe has informed me that he's gonna wear a Hawaiian shirt the entire weekend.
I'm pretty excited.
So I'm gonna hold him
and
up to
not
that.
wash it.
I'm just hoping it's not the same Hawaiian shirt.
You know he's not gonna wash it. But yeah, Comic-Con 2013 in San Diego next week.
How many years have you been going now?
This will be my 8th year.
This is your 8th in a row, or
8th in a row.
And this is Joe. Is our 4th?
I think it's our 4th.
I'm sorry. This is my 7th. This is my 7th. This is your 4th. It's gonna be chaotic as usual. Gonna see everything. Orphan Black, Joss Whedon, the X-Files 20th anniversary premieres. Yeah, Breaking Bad panel. I don't know if I can make that, but
are they doing any of the upcoming shows for next year?
They are. They're doing the Blacklist for NBC, which you caught the pilot of.
Pilot's
you loved
fantastic.
it. The Tomorrow People, the Originals, which is the spinoff of Vampire Diaries on CW.
Are they doing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Yes, they are doing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Of course,
I'm sure that they've got like a building plastered with Agents of
S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm sure it's going to be in Hall H. I think it is in Hall H. So yeah, we'll be coming to you live from Comic-Con next weekend.
I have a feeling it might go a little longer than our typical 45 minutes.
And it might be a little crazy. Who knows who will drop in on us and chat with us, but
spoiler alert, no one's going to drop in on us.
But Garrett, I can attest, might be a little tipsy.
I will definitely.
We might be coming from the Samsung Lounge. The Samsung is going to graciously host us for a little bit, I think. So we might report from there with some free booze and food. So
yeah,
there you go.
Hiko loves the food, and I love the free booze. So
and Joe loves them both.
So thanks for listening.
Yes, you can
Ringo.
follow Ringo. You're on Twitter.
Yes, I'm on Twitter, Ringole, Twitter handle.
At Ringo Lay, Ringole. And
So your last name's pronounced Lay.
Yeah.
Lay.
And you
But
introduced
Lee
him as
is
Ringo
fine.
Lee.
Well, he
It's
said
fine.
Lee before, so where can people check out Big Gay Love, or is there a website for Big Gay Love? Are you accepting any?
Just add me on Facebook. It's
All
fine.
right.
No big deal.
You can follow me at The First Echo on Twitter, and Hotter in Hollywood is at Hotter in Hwood.
And if you can spell my name, you can find me anywhere. Garytt. We'll see you next week
All
from
right.
Comic-Con, everybody. Thanks for listening.
See ya.